Hey guys, this is Thigh Company here. Welcome everybody to today's live stream. Today is March the 14th, 2024. Welcome everyone to today's live stream. Hope you all been doing well today. And for today, we're going to be continuing the stories series that we were doing on Grandma Kurva. And we were trying to tell a bunch of stories from the last live stream from March 13th, but for some reason the internet went out and we're not sure exactly as to why, but we're going to be talking about a few different stories. Now, I don't recall where exactly we left off because I know we were talking about a few things, but I'll kind of, I guess, backtrack a little bit on a few stories. So, yeah. So, right before my dad met my mom, uh, Grandma Kurva had a weird thing where basically she was a housewife, but didn't really do any work in her life. And on top of that, she also, let's say she had a nanny. We talked about the racism conspiracy theory that was going on with that too. Um, Now, the next thing I was going to talk about was regarding my dad's first marriage. And so we're talking about Sped Dad here, right? So apparently, let's see. Hello, Katie. Welcome, Katie, first person in the live stream chat here. Hello, hello. Welcome. Glad to have you here. And so yeah, so what's been going on was that with the first marriage, I think what I talked about in the last live stream was he met this girl, and I think he was like 17 and she was 16. And I think what, if I might be wrong though, but I think what happened was he had like gotten the girl pregnant and they had married at a young age, but Grandma Kurva didn't like the marriage at all because or no, actually, I believe it was what was going on was the girl didn't have any money at the time, and she felt the girl was taking advantage of my dad, and she thought that my grandma thought that this girl was um, like way too country or redneck, I guess, and so she forced my dad to divorce or break up with this girl later on. And I have no clue how all that happened. And I've been trying to figure out. That's probably one of my next uh, missions or goals is to see if he happens to by chance remember anything about that. I doubt that he does, given his all his like memory issues and all that. But I think it's worth a try. I'll see where and off that if he remembers anything. But yeah, apparently he was forced to like divorce this lady, and it's the weirdest thing because you know Grandma Kurva herself is so southern in her like culture and her background, and it just it's kind of sort of a hypocrisy that she decides to like have him divorce this girl when the girl is from the same background as she is. So that doesn't make any sense, right? So that's like the first weird story, and then right after that, um, my grandmother was doing this weird thing what I call house hopping, where she would be, you know, eventually after my well actually this here's the good story which leads up to the house hopping too. So when my grandfather was around the time when my grandfather was passed or going to pass away, she decided that, oh, I need to get all of his money before I don't know if it was the government or who exactly, because she had her own um, superstitions or conspiracy theory going on that if she didn't take all of his money out of the bank account that his money was in, that money would like disappear for some reason. And right, like right when he was, getting worse at the hospital, instead of trying to like get him better, she's like, oh, we need to get his money as quick as possible. And that was her weird thing, was like she was so obsessed with money because she was um created, I think she was the first person in the family who created or started this like uh lifestyle where it's like, oh, I'm not going to live for myself, I'm going to have somebody take care of me kind of ideology that they had at that. And she was basically with that housewife mentality. She basically was dependent on my grandfather. And she kept doing that, depending. Oh, I'm gonna have to depend. I'm not going to go out and work and create a career for myself. I'm gonna just go take the money from elsewhere, whatever that be, and pull that into me. So that was that mentality of trying to figure out um, what possibilities, like routes were out there. And that was one of the things that I remember everybody telling me about growing up. It was that she was so obsessed on trying to figure out how to get money out of the bank. Grandfather was passing away versus trying to care for him. And that was just like the most insane thing. And like my Russian side of family says, oh, that's like the most American thing that she's doing. And I'm like, I don't think that's a mentality. I think it's just her. But that was like one of the big stories I remember growing up being told about. And of course, this is like, my dad would never talk about this because he thinks everything on that end is not only like divine, but it's like can't. Oh, there's no way something bad could happen on my side of the family. That's like his mentality. But so that's why my mom's side was like telling me about all that. So yeah, and once to get into the house hopping story, once my grandmother was able to get as much money as she could have out of my grandfather's account. Uh, I believe what happened was, I don't know if they sold the house that they had in. I think they sold the house that they had in New York, and then I want to say my aunt had maybe a house in New Jersey, and then she sold that and came down to Atlanta, Georgia, because that's around the time when she first got a job with, I believe it was AT&T or Verizon. I want to say AT&T. I don't know for sure though, but some telecommunication company. And so I think one of the last things my grandfather did before he passed away was he bought um, my aunt a house. And I don't know if it was like his own doing or if it was my grandmother forcing him to buy the house. I don't know. That's where it gets a little weird because I feel like, probably in good spirit, he would have bought the house, but I do think it's very likely that my grandmother put a lot of pressure on him to do that. So what ended up happening was my aunt had a house in like right outside Atlanta. And then my dad, he had a very weird side growing up as well. He like lived in a mobile house at one point. He did a lot of weird stuff, like went from mobile house to apartments to another apartment, and he was doing house hopping or apartment hopping later on too. But I think what happened was that my grandmother didn't want to live by herself, and because my grandfather was no longer around, therefore she wouldn't like be able to, I guess, afford a nanny anymore. So that's why she was like, oh, because I can't have this person take care of me, or depend on this like resource anymore, I have to go and find a new resource. So what she decided to do was, oh, I'm gonna just rely on my kids. And so she had four kids, one girl and three boys, my dad, two uncles, and an aunt. uh, let's see here. I have a new person, EXENST. Welcome to the show. HRU. How are you? I'm doing well. Welcome, welcome. Uh, but yeah, so she was doing this house hopping, relying on her kids. So what I believe was going on now, I don't know. So to kind of give you a quick recap. So I have one aunt who went into, or an aunt who went into telecommunications, one uncle who went into law or legal studies, or a lawyer, attorney, and then I have another uncle who went into chemical engineering, and then my dad went into, for some reason, psychology. And so I think what happened was my grandmother would mainly stay at my aunt's place, my uncle who was the attorney, and I don't know if she would stay with the chemistry uncle. I don't know. Um, I have no idea. But then I know she also stayed at my dad's place when he was with my mom a few times, back when she was alive. And that's what her thing was like. No, so what she did was she forced my aunt to make a bedroom for her, and she's like, "All right, I'm gonna go, make a bed for my mom or whatever." So she'd made a bedroom. Then she made the bedroom with a bathroom, so separate bathroom, shower, toilet combination with a bedroom, and which was funny because the bedroom was right next to the front door of her house, my aunt's house. So it's like if you're stepping in, and then immediately you got a bedroom to your right, and that's like such a very unusual thing to have, especially in like Atlanta. So she basically had that resource, and she would I want to say at least most of the time she stayed at my aunt's place. She also stayed at when she's with the uncle who's the attorney. That uncle has a little bit of an unusual house because he had bought out an old, like 100-year-old school building. So you're thinking, this would be like maybe 1800s, um, late 1800s. Who knows how old it is really? But it was like a house that would have like a center chimney in the middle, and then rooms kind of all around this center chimney. And um, but the house itself was like built on weird like concrete and brick slabs, and the house right now is kind of cheap, um, but she basically stayed at my at that place is like other thing. But whenever she was at my dad's place or my house growing up, uh, what happened was she would like not spend money on anything. She would be like, "Oh, you gotta feed me, you gotta clothe me, you gotta do this for me," instead of being like, "All right, I got these resources, let me help you all." So that was her other weird nuance that she liked to do. And then during that time, she also was very big on like restaurants, fast food, and all that. So she was constantly having these periods where she would like gain weight, and then she was poor. She wouldn't eat. She would begin to lose weight. So either she was eating all the time, getting fat, or poor and starving. That was like her weird diet thing that she had. And she would always, she would eat at home, but like very rarely would anybody cook her food. It would always be like pre-made food from the grocery store. And my dad always liked to go and take, since my dad didn't know how to freaking like barely would ever cook, he always would go to restaurants and fast food all the time, and she was happy about that. They always would go to these like not like very fine dining, it'd be like the casual dining stuff, so like your oh god, like Red Lobster, Applebee's, TGI Fridays, um what's that, what do you call it, Olive Garden, like those type of restaurants. And I don't know why, but that was like her freaking weird thing. And so yeah, apparently, um, what her other big thing was that she decided to get herself a dog. She got herself a little a white dog that I, for life of me, cannot remember what kind of dog it was. Um, but she called the dog Muffin, and that was like one of her signature things. Is like, oh, you got to take care of me and my dog Muffin. And growing up, like I liked the dog Muffin, but it became later a nuisance, because she would always like force me to go walk the dog, clean up the poop and everything for the dog, and that was not something that I really liked at all, especially once they got down to Florida, which was another crazy. That's another crazy story, right? So eventually, my dad moved to Florida because he thought he was going to get more money living in Florida. So he I think believe it was he and my grandmother decided to get a house in Tampa, Florida, and I don't know why, but they paid for a down payment and then like let the house go into foreclosure. So she lost the house, and then they go went back. She went back to Atlantis. So that was like a bunch of wasted money for no reason. So that was like her other weird thing. And then when she was there, she had my dad build a full on like walk-in shower, tub combination, and that was like another like, oh god, how many, like $10,000-15,000 project as well. Um, yeah, and she had a lot of crazy things, and I didn't remember she was always one of those people who'd always like go to shopping center, like Sam's Club was her big thing, and she would be, type of person who would always look for those electric carts. She was one of those people. Um, and she had a lot of weird things. She also had one of those what I call the Wicked Witch of the West laughs, and she was also very obsessed with Wizard of Oz for some reason. I don't know why on earth she was, but she would watch it like several times. All right, I have a new person here called Mia Heval Yikilmas. Welcome. Is SC, I don't know what SC means. Is SC, is she in Gek or guess? I don't know what that means. Hold on. I think you're writing in Turkish. Um, so what I'm going to try to do now is uh, I have my Russian grandmother here to the side here. I'm going to ask her if she remembers any stories. Ты помнишь, каким вот история связана с Курва? Ничего не помнишь? А ты что, молоко пью? Кефир. How did you know? Your name? Не, я сейчас съем апельсин. Слушай, это самая гранма, она что любила вот это самое кушать? Она как ела? Она все подряд. Все подряд? Особенно, когда мы очень ей нравился суп. She's saying my grandmother would always know. I'm sorry. My grandma Kurva liked to always eat out, and is she on her 2009s? What do you mean 2009s? Like how old is? Like I don't understand your question. Like how old was she? Because she was born in 1922. And she passed away in October of 2016. So she lived to about 94 years old. So she had a pretty long life. What was her style? Like style of clothing? Как у гранма одевалась? Она хорошо одевалась или по-разному? Или... По-разному. Но вкуса у нее не было. So my grandma says that in reference to Grandma Kurva, she apparently had so she would always wear the most random like clothing, but she never had any fashion style or fashion sense. So there was no like no comprehension of what the current mode of fashion would be. So she would always be wearing the most random things. Yeah, that's her fashion sense. А как характер у нее было? Фальшивый. Фальшивый? Тогда бы ее дед бы не назвал Курвой. Фальшивый в смысле, как она всегда... So my grandma was saying, so Grandma Kurva apparently also had a lot of, like, her behavior was really... what I would say poor is one way to explain it, because she would always put on this what I call a fake face. So what that means is that she would always pretend everything was all fine and dandy, and it when really should be like go behind your back and start talking crap about you, or should be like she would like to spread kind of like gossip around. That was one of her other big things that she would do. Another thing was that she had like she would always like to travel like in the cars. Like she would always be driving around for some reason, and she would never like she would always like to go into most random like little towns and villages all across the South. Like I remember a few times when my dad was still driving and he would have her in the front seat. Um, that was like one of the weird things that they would always do. They would be like going to like some random little freaking village in the middle of nowhere and go and buy a bag of boiled peanuts. That was like one of grandma's like weird things that she liked to do. Then she would also like go to these random, very obscure fast food places, like Checkers was one of the weird ones. Um, and whenever they would go to these random like fast food places, they would always get like a bunch of food for themselves. And let's see here. And then they would also go like they would barely get any food for us. So what I remember I had to do when I was growing up was like, oh, I would have to go and like whoever's place it was, I would always go for like like a box of cereal, for example, is one of the big things. And my sister and I would be sharing cereal in the back while they would have bunch of like bags of fast food in the front, like munching on the fries and hamburgers and milkshakes and all that. She also was really addicted to like Wendy's chili for some reason. Like they would go to Wendy's, get a bunch of like chili. She'd always put sour cream, the shredded cheddar, like the orange cheddar, um, like crackers into the chili as well. Um, oh God, she liked to kind of eat a bunch of weird things too. Um, Слушай, а когда ты сам маффин купила, не знаете?
Не знаю.
Ну,
Ну, до нас еще.
до нас еще.
В 96-м году он еще был у нее. Уже был.
Сам
90...
Маффин 20 лет, наверное, жил, да?
Не знаю, в 94-м, наверное, 93-м.
Ну, 20 лет, да. So, her dog, or pet dog, Muffin, that dog lived like 20 years lifespan, I believe. I don't even know why she like got rid of the dog too. That was like one of the other weird, shocking things too. Let's see. Her death was really weird too when she passed away because she was like apparently what happened was she was doing the house hopping so often that people started getting kind of annoyed and ticked off because she would like to stay at somebody's house for several months on end at a time. And so she would be like at my aunt's place. And I think what happened was after they lost the house in Tampa, Florida, she moved back to Atlanta, Georgia to live with my aunt. And she started like being really like almost like bullying to a degree on my aunt's kids. So my aunt had like 3 kids, a girl and 2 boys. And she was bullying people all the time to the point where I know the girls started like cussing back at her for some reason. One of the boys turned gay, and that was like one of the biggest like fiascos. And I don't even know. It's like such. There's a few different weird stories I'm gonna have to talk about too. But apparently, she had also bullied one of the kids into shaving his head bald. And that kid was like acting up in school all the time. One of the kids had like taken her car, and this is when I think she was doing a little bit of like carpooling or taking kids to school or something. Um, One of the kids had took in her car, and I think they like crashed the car 3 times, and then they, got speeding tickets and all that craziness, right? So that was like one of the things there. But yeah, like I guess to wrap up the stories, so her passing away was really weird because she got basically kicked out of my aunt's place, went into like a senior center, and she was there with one of her like cousins or sisters that she called Betty. And I don't even know if that was her real name or not. But this Betty lady was not even like related to her, even though she like claimed all kinds of various things, like it's her cousin, it's her sister, it's a schoolmate or a school friend or childhood friend. But I don't know, it's like weird because Betty had a bunch of money and she was also from like a Jewish background, while my grandmother is not Jewish. She's from a I guess, Southern Baptist background. Um, and I don't know, it's like really weird because she lived in that retirement center with Betty for like several years. And I think she must have been paying a bunch of money to stay there with Betty because eventually she got kicked out and ran out of money, was put into like a regular senior like care center. And then when that was happening, eventually she had like a stroke, and my dad was trying to hide all that for some reason from us. And I don't know why he did that. And that's pretty much how she passed away in October of 2016. But all right, guys. Well, that pretty much, as far as I can tell, covers most of the stories that I can remember. Um, but yeah, guys, make sure to subscribe to Thigh Company, like this video, and also comment down below what you would like to see for future videos and episodes on the Thigh Company channel, guys. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next live stream. Peace out.